Hello and welcome to episode 32 of Tom's Hirschsprung's podcast. A very, very special guest joins me today. She is an actress and YouTuber. You may know her from The Family Plan. You may know her from Only Murders in the Building or from Fear the Walking Dead. My guest today is actress and YouTuber Zoe Colletti. Zoe, welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you so much, so much for joining and taking time out of your busy acting schedule to be with us. So thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, of course, any day.
Fantastic, thank you. Now, something that we'll dive straight into the Hirschsprungs, if I may,
Mhm.
and talk about. Obviously, were born with Hirschsprungs, something that some people may know, some people may not know.
Yeah.
Um, Would you like to sort of talk a little bit about your sort of experience being diagnosed? Obviously, people are diagnosed very young, and I'm not expecting
Yep.
you to know a lot when you were diagnosed. Um, but would you like to just talk a little bit about your sort of experience with Hirschsprungs?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, I do want to say, regardless, that I think your show is super awesome. Because Hersprongs is not something that's talked about a ton, and even for me personally, just getting to see a ton of people talk about their experiences as well is just really, really cool because you don't get to see that a lot. So, starting
Thank you.
off with that, I think it's really awesome. Anyway, on to my story droning on. Anyway. So yeah, obviously I don't have a ton of crazy memories of it happening. I just have kind of heard the lore of what it was like when I was born. I was not a sentient baby. But anyway, I was born. I'm from New Jersey. So that's where it all went down. But yeah, I was born. Um, Obviously pretty quickly on parents could tell that, things were not the most super normal. I'm a second kid too, so they had kind of gone through having a kid and knew a little bit what to expect and knew that it wasn't exactly how it was supposed to go.
Same.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
also number two.
Yep. So they're like, this is not the same as the other one was. What's going on? Um, so yeah, they kind of were starting to do tests and stuff. Again, I'm turning 23 this year. And so crazy enough, even with just that gap, there's so much more information now about it. I feel like even then, like they really had no clue what was going on. So as much as my parents had no idea what was going on, even a lot of the doctors and stuff didn't really know what was going on. And of course, that's kind of a scary position to be in when you're like, having just had a kid. So anyway, they were kind of trying to figure out what was going on with me. And then unfortunately, the doctor at the hospital that I was at took a biopsy of my intestines and then sent me home when I was only a few days old and didn't realize that they had perforated my intestines. They had like cut a hole in my intestines and didn't realize, and sent me home. So um, that had been kind of a crazy addition to just the Hirschsprung's diagnosis in general. So I ended up getting like rushed to the emergency room. I had an emergency colostomy put in when I was a baby because of that mistake that had happened. And then I ended up being in the NICU for like 3 months because I had sepsis and all a bunch of crazy stuff that had to do with not only just the Hirschsprungs, but then also the medical mistake. And so it was crazy time for my parents. I had to like heal open, and they just had a really hard time getting like the infection under control, and it was a whole crazy thing. And so yeah, again, craziness. So I got home finally after 3 months and had to have like a nurse in the house to like do the wound care and packing the wound and crazy, crazy, crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. So that that's how that kind of went down in the first kind of initial bit. And then I was able to get the pull through surgery from a doctor that um we didn't realize, even though there we were asking a ton of questions about it. I say we. My mom was asking a ton of questions about it. And it turns out that the doctor that literally created the pull through surgery was like 45 minutes away in a different hospital. And nobody seemed to think that that would be a relevant piece of information. Um, So it ended up being great. I went to an amazing doctor. His name is Dr. Pena, in New York, who did my pull-through surgery. And there was so much scar tissue and everything because of the mistakes that had happened and trying to kind of heal from that, that the surgery took like 8 hours. I still had to have the colostomy during like the whole kind of healing process. And then 6 months later, I had a hernia surgery, just because again, like trauma to the area. My body was just like not really sure what to do about that. And then I was able to have the colostomy reversed at around like a year old. And I haven't had to have one since then, which is obviously a good thing.
Yes,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, and then in terms of kind of my life growing up, and just having Hirschsprungs in general, again, it's like anyone that has it or any kind of medical condition that you're born with, it's sort of like you don't know anything else, so it becomes just like like it's just your nature to kind of have that, but it's definitely not fun. It's not great. I'm always like, yeah, it's a bit TMI to talk about, but like that is what it is. But yeah, up until I was 17 years old, I was having to do daily enemas, which is not
Wow.
lovely.
No,
Uh,
not great.
no, no, not great at all. And especially kind of getting a bit older and not being like a little kid and having to have like my parents kind of rotating between who had to do it. Being like, I'm going through puberty and I really don't feel like having my parents doing this anymore.
No, no.
So yeah, definitely not the best, but at around like 15, 16, I was able to go to the Children's Hospital in Ohio, and I did like the bowel management program, where I was able to finally figure out like a good regimen of like laxative and fiber and all that good stuff, to be able to kind of keep things moving. And I do like checkups now every now and then just to make sure everything is like working. But luckily for me, which has been really amazing, since I was like 17, I've been able to stop the enemas completely and just be on like laxative and fiber, to kind of keep things moving, which was majorly impactful in my life, just because, at the time I had like my first boyfriend and we were in a long distance relationship, and it was all things like I wasn't able to travel by myself because I needed someone there to do the enemas. And my mom was obviously amazing, amazing. She would make it that, I'd go to sleepaway camp and she would stay in a hotel, 5 minutes down the road so she could come and do my enema so that I'd be able to go to sleepaway camp still, even though I couldn't really go away for like a week by myself. So we made it work, but yeah, it was a pretty impactful transition at that age to realize I'd be able to like kind of be mobile on my own completely, and still be like alive and not feeling like I'm nauseous and gonna die. So
Wow.
that's the kind of Cliff Notes version of my start to finish, in terms of like now with like my actual regiment for Hirschsprungs. It's kind of the same thing now. It's been still working and I'm kind of chilling with that now. So
That's
that's the gist.
fantastic. No, that's fantastic. Thank you so much
For
for sharing
sure.
that story. And also, I'll just pick up on a couple of things you said there. Just how dedicated your mum is to keeping you well. I know I had the same experience with my parents. Every single surgery, my mum was there, and she stayed in the hospital, and this, that, the other. So yeah, just give a sort of huge shout out to parents, and especially your mum, my mum, for keeping us alive, I guess.
Yep, yep. I know it's a crazy job. Not only just like the job of keeping your kid alive as like a parent of any kid ever, but you got a little bit of extra work there. So I think yeah, big shout out to all the parents that put the work in for their kids like that.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, with you started your career, and we'll move on to acting a little bit later on. But you started your career in 2006, so you were what, 4, 5 years old, give or take.
Mhm.
So very, very young, and obviously going through all of this stuff as well. How did that work? Having an acting career, obviously there must have been a bit of traveling involved, and I know you said your mum was sort of would stay at hotels and this, that, and the other, but how did you make that work?
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting again from my perspective, it being that it was always that way for me. I think a nice thing about that is that you don't have to change anything about your lifestyle, because when you're born with it, you sort of just like, that's what your routine is from day one. So you don't like, you're not really aware that other people aren't living that way. So I think that's a positive for being a kid and kind of trying to process like these extra things that you have to do to kind of keep yourself feeling good that you can tell other people aren't having to do. So that's just on that basis, I think, is a positive thing to take away a positive of the experience for sure. Yeah, it's interesting. So it's funny, my brother is 27, and he started acting when he was like 4 as well. And then I came into the picture and kind of ended up like following behind him and doing it as well. And so my family had quite a bit of a routine going in terms of um getting the auditions done and traveling for the work. Most of the stuff that me and my brother did when we were really young was a lot of commercials. And so we used to be like in and out of New York all the time, like probably 3, 4 times a week. We'd be going back and forth doing auditions and stuff, which isn't a crazy commute. It's like 45 minutes to get into New York from where I live. But it was it was interesting. I feel like it didn't have a massive impact on that kind of stuff when I was younger, because I had such a regiment of like, I mean, I'd be like, God, kill me for having to go home at night and do all the crap that I have to do to make sure I'm not gonna die. But I think one thing I've always loved about it since I was like super, super little is whether it was just like me having a good attitude about it or my mom there to be able to make sure she could help me and things would be okay. Like, I feel like I've always um really strived to have it not be something that like is a hindrance to anything that I've wanted to do in my life, which I think is like 1,000% possible to do. And if anything, it's just become an extra thing that I've been able to talk about and kind of add to my life in a positive way. So yeah, it wasn't crazy. Like, I don't feel like it crazily affected me when I was little in that regard. Because again, we had a pretty good system down, especially by the time I was aware of what was going on. We had a good system for what I had to do to keep things moving.
Stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
Fantastic. No, thank you ever so much again for sharing that. And I wanted to sort of touch on another point as well. That's something that you've done quite recently. And talking about body confidence and this, that, and the other. You have become a creative designer for a swimwear brand. The swimwear brand is on my notes, but could you just remind me?
Yes, of course. Yeah,
Kitty and
yeah.
Vibe. Sorry, I couldn't
Yeah.
read. Kitty and Vibe.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. Kitty and Vibe is awesome. Getting to work with them was such a cool experience. Their whole message in general is just like ultra body positivity, especially for how like annoying and uncomfortable bathing suit shopping can be in general. Even people that are like have the utmost confidence in how they look, it's still like that, oh God, I'm gonna like find one that I like, a needle in a haystack of one that I'm gonna like feel really good in. So I related a lot to that, just on a base level of like being a girl, going through puberty, like dealing with like figuring out who the heck you are and how you feel about like the skin that you've just like been involuntarily put into. And so in that on a base level, I thought was like a really great message, and made it that I was super excited to get the opportunity to work with them. I also, just on a separate note, love fashion in general. It's a huge part of who I am. And I love like the self-expression that comes with it. So getting the opportunity to like design for the first time was super cool for me. And with some really amazing women that run the company. The company is completely run by women. Women make the bathing suits, design the bathing suits, like the whole 9 yards. So it's just a really cool company in general. But to kind of add to that, it was a really, really cool experience for me. And honestly, one of the first times that I was able to do an entire campaign that was so specialized to me in the way that body positivity for me personally meant so much more than um just the kind of base description of what you would think for that, not just confidence in your maybe weight or your figure or any of that kind of stuff. But I have a ton of scarring, like a ton of scarring, not only just because of like the Hirschsprung surgeries, but also a lot of my scarring is due to the mistake and then having to heal open and all that kind of stuff and having lots of scar tissue. So unfortunately, in that regard, it's not even all just about the Hirschsprungs. It's about kind of the disaster that ensued um right after I was born. So I definitely struggled with that a decent amount when I was younger. Particularly there is like one scar that I have on my stomach that, because of the way I was like Frankensteined back together, um kind of like puckers a little bit and like gives me like a little pooch on my stomach. And like when I was younger, I hated it. I was like, wouldn't want to wear tight clothes because it was like you could see it. And I even had people on like Instagram and stuff when I was younger, like commenting on it, being like, oh, what is that? Like da da da, whatever. So like it was sucky. Like I did not enjoy that, especially kind of when I was younger. And nobody really feels all that great in their skin, I think, when you're like 12 to 15. You're like, I don't know what's going on. Uh. So that was not great. But as I've kind of gotten older, I love them. I think they're awesome. I am like at every given moment down to show off my scars, because it's so massively a part of who I am, and why I am the person that I am today. And honestly, if somebody were to ever comment on it, it gives me a great excuse to kind of share about myself and something that I think makes me so uniquely me. Um, and they were super, super open about my entire campaign being related to my scarring, and even doing the kind of photo shoots and stuff. Like I talked about it a ton. I got to do like a log line kind of like speaking all about my um experiences. And I even was able to pick some models for the shoot that had like maybe some like skin conditions or other things that were not commonly seen necessarily in models, to make my entire campaign super focused on body positivity, not only in just like your physique, but also in stuff that maybe is out of your control completely. So yeah, because I think scarring isn't necessarily talked about a ton in like the modeling industry or anything, um, in terms of like that being an aspect of making it hard for you to feel confident in yourself. Um, so that was really cool. And there was um, a ton of great feedback from that, of people like DMing me or emailing me. I heard from a ton of people that have Hirschsprungs as well, whether it be like people personally that have it, or people that like just had babies that have it, um, which was something that was always really important to me. And I think really cool just to even be able to like give some hope and encouragement and like a sense of calm, even for parents that have just had kids that have Hirschsprungs, that are like completely overwhelmed and not sure how that will impact their life as an adult. And to be able to be like, no, it's fine. They'll be chilling. Don't worry. Like you can literally do anything you want to do. It's fine. Like your kid's gonna be a-okay. No
Yeah.
stress.
I'm so glad you added that last part, because this is everything the podcast is, which is why again I was so keen to get you involved, because you epitomize, everything to do with this podcast. It's not a medical podcast. I'm not going to sit here, and I'm not a doctor. I don't know, um, but it's all about saying, okay, yes, you do have Hirschsprungs. Yeah, okay, parts of it are, do suck a little bit, but you can and go and do so many things, and you epitomize that. You've gone and done. I mean, we'll talk about the acting. We'll talk about the YouTube later on. But you've gone and done some incredible things, and obviously, as we touched on, you've gone through some pretty rough stuff with Hirschsprungs. But that's something that's so important to me, in being somebody that can go and do anything you like. I know it's a bit cliche, but you can go and do whatever you like. A Hirschsprung shouldn't be the thing that holds you back at all. So that I absolutely love that about you. Really, really do. Um, and the models as well. I didn't realize that you picked the models that had scarring, and I love that as well. Was that just sort of like you have a catalog of models and you just sort of pick randomly, or how did that work?
Yeah, well, it was interesting. Like I was hoping to kind of do that on a much larger scale. There was only one model that I had that had a skin condition. It was interesting. I had no idea going into it what the process was at all for that kind of stuff. Like I was involved in the design stuff, and then they're like, here's all these other things you can do. And I was like, whoa, I am not involved in the business side of things. Sure, okay. But I had no idea what was going on. Crazy learning experience for me. But yeah, I was like, I would love to be able to incorporate this somehow, and look at it as a way to give opportunity also to like other people that maybe don't like get a ton of modeling opportunities. And especially, being in LA, it's like, hey, there's probably tons of girls that are like super interested in being able to get to model and maybe don't have like a million opportunities for it. And they have like they never hire actual models, or like they don't go through like modeling agencies. They like take submissions from people that like their brand, and then hire models based off of that, which is a cool system regardless, that just they do for their company. And all of their campaigns, like all of their shoots, they never use, like it's always different people every time, which I think is really cool, because they also are kind of looking at it from the perspective of like giving opportunity to anyone that feels like they want to model. Um, but yeah, I got to just look through a bunch of the submissions, and there was some people with really cool stories and stuff as well that were interested. And there was like a ton of people, which was just really cool to see as well. Because I love to see people being confident and kind of rocking their scars or whatever they have going on. I think it's really like inspiring and cool. So that was fun.
I think that's brilliant, and thank you for such a great insight into how that all works, because I had no idea. I mean, okay, I'm not in
I
the
didn't
modeling
either.
industry, but I and will never be in the modeling industry. But from sort of 3 or 4 models I've had on here and talked to, I haven't heard that type of process before. So no, thank you so much for sharing. And if I may, we'll move swiftly on to your career. Because it started very, very young, as we
Mhm.
as we mentioned, sort of around 4 or 5 years old, you got into acting. Um, Again, you sort of mentioned a little bit on how that started and your brother being involved and et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. So you started in 2006 with a TV pilot called American Men.
Yep.
Um, how does auditioning go at 4 or 5 years old? How does that work?
Oh my gosh. It's a process for sure. It's interesting in general. I don't know how I ended up getting into it at all. So I obviously I'm quite a talkative person now, but when I was young, I was so shy, like brutally shy, like can't even order at restaurants shy. Borderline being a mute. Not in private. Like if I was in private with my family, I was like a chatterbox. But the second I'm like step outside into civilization, I was like zip lip, completely mute. Um, which is
Wow.
crazy because how in the world I've ended up doing the job that I do, that does not make sense at all.
That
Um, so to say that it was an interesting kind of start to my career, because the agency that we went to took my brother immediately, because he's the opposite of me in every way in that regard. He was like big ham, center of attention all the time. You can watch our home videos and you'll see him like the camera's on me for 3 seconds and he's like pushing me out of the way to bring the camera back onto him. He was born to be an actor, a performer, all of the above. Couldn't be me at all. So the agency took my brother and actually was like, we are not interested in her because she doesn't speak. So that's not going to work. She probably can't do very well for auditions. And the crazy thing that happened was my brother had a commercial audition for sausage. It was a sausage commercial. And I was in the waiting room with my mom because I used to go in and out of the city with them just because I was like 4 and whatever. I just go with them. And they're like, well, we need a sister as well. Like, we're looking to cast siblings for the commercial. Is there any chance she'd want to come in? Because they look a lot alike and are like their actual siblings. So why not?
yeah,
And
yeah.
my mom's like, yeah, good luck. Sure. I guess you can ask her, but yeah, right. Sure. And they asked me, and I was like, sure. For some reason, I was possessed by something to go into this audition room with my brother. And the agency called later and they're like, yeah, well, Ian, who's my brother, they're like, Ian got the commercial. But Zoe also booked the commercial. So you can come in and we can like sign contracts for her to be in the agency because clearly she does something right in the audition room. So I had to prove myself, and I booked the first commercial I ever auditioned for, which was for a sausage company. Really glamorous start
Nice.
to acting. So that was kind of how that began. Again, no idea what possessed me that day to do it, but then I was in it and I enjoyed like the actual filming of the commercials, and um crazy enough, that's kind of how that started. The audition process for a little kid is really interesting because I was doing auditions before I could read. So when I had to learn lines, my mom would just have to sit there and read them to me over and over again until I had them memorized. Which is completely different, obviously, now than how I learn my lines before filming. So that's like a super interesting. You don't think about like how do those little kids learn like dialogue for scenes when they can't read the script.
Yeah.
So most of the time that's how it goes, just like audio, hearing it over and over again until you know it. But yeah, my first, project that is like a movie or a TV show was that pilot American Men. And I look back and I'm so itty bitty in that, but I was doing a ton of commercials in between there, for like every company under the sun, and was doing like Walmart and Home Depot and like Wendy's and whatever, all the things. So I did a ton of commercials when I was young. But yeah, it's crazy. Auditioning when you're really little is nuts because they just like shove you in a room and you're like, hey, hello. I don't really know what to do here. I'm not, how are you supposed to know how to do a job interview at 4 years old? You're like, I
No,
don't
you don't. No, no, you just turn up and do what they tell you
know.
to do, presumably. They say
Exactly.
this and you say it, and
Uh-huh.
do this dance and you do it, and
Yep,
presumably
pretty
that's
much.
the way it works.
That's the gist. Yeah. Sounds about right.
That's fantastic. No, that's brilliant. And then you obviously sort of kept that kept it going from such a young age, and presumably kept doing commercials, kept doing sort of bits and pieces, and everything. And then was your sort of first? I know we talked about the American Men, but what do you consider your first sort of big project?
Interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, it different things for different reasons, I feel like. But the first movie that I did, which was like a really big scale type of thing, I was 12 years old. Um, and I did the remake that they did of Annie, that came out in 2014, I want to say.
Yep.
And so that one was a crazy thing. I remember so vividly being at summer camp and my mom like picking me up from camp and being like, "You got the movie," and like freaking out because it was just crazy, crazy. The process for it was so long. It was like a singing audition and then like a billion rounds of acting auditions and then a dancing rehearsal and then you go back for the dancing audition. Like it was one of those ones that was like a huge long process. So for me, getting that one and kind of working on my not only my first movie, but a movie that was like a big, big scale filming set was really, really cool and super impactful to me in general. But then I would say the movie that I did a little while later in life when I think I was 17 or 18 when I filmed it, was the movie Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark that I did. And that was the very first time that I had ever been like the main character of a movie. And that's amazing and super, super cool. And just I was kind of really nervous to do it because it's like, whoa, this is like the first time I'm doing a job where like reviews will definitely like comment on what I've done. I can't like slide under the radar of being like a character that's not really gonna get like talked about in a
Yeah,
review. And also just it feeling like a cool experience that all of these people have kind of put their trust in my ability to perform to the level that they're looking for this movie. And I gained a ton of confidence um in myself kind of getting through that experience and really enjoying it and the movie doing well. So that was like a huge turning point for me. Like just with my own confidence in acting. And again, that shy little girl is still absolutely in there. So kind of getting through those kind of experiences and it going well and being positive, it is all stuff that really made me like get to the point where I am now.
fantastic. No, thank you so much again. And I'll take you back a little bit when you said kind of the age of 11, 12, because again, people may know this about you, they may not, but you are a huge horror movie fan. Are you right? Is that right?
It's
And
true.
and around that time, sort of like Walking Dead and everything came out, and you effectively got to live out a dream of yours, if I'm right in saying, in the fact that you're a huge fan of Walking Dead, and then a few years later, you were cast in it, or a sort of offshoot of it. What's that feeling like? And again, it probably nothing necessarily to do with films, but what's that feeling like of having something that you look up to and being such a huge fan of, and
Yeah.
then being cast in it and being asked to star in it. What's that feeling like?
Oh my gosh. That one was super super crazy for me. Cuz yeah, so when The Walking Dead did come out, my family was like obsessed with the show. We used to have like big groups of people over on Sunday nights when the new episodes would come out and we'd all watch it together. Like definitely like super super invested in the whole Walking Dead universe in general. I was obsessed with. There was a huge stint in my life where I was convinced I was going to also try and pursue like special effects makeup like in film and TV as well. I was super interested in it. You could ask my mom or my brother or anyone that I shared a bathroom with, like they'd come in and it would just be like covered in blood and weird concoctions of like oatmeal and things that YouTube was telling me could work to make gross zombie skin. I don't know. I was like so invested in that for a while. I still love doing Halloween makeup and stuff. It's my favorite time of year. So yeah, I was majorly invested in that whole Walking Dead universe. So getting the chance to be on the show was amazing. I remember some of my first days just like getting to work and being around all of like the zombies and all that stuff was so, so cool. Unfortunately for me, my character got blown up in an explosion and I didn't get to be a zombie,
Yes.
which was so sad. I was
Yes,
so
it
sad.
did.
I would have loved to be in the full zombie makeup. But such a cool experience. The crew and the cast and everyone are so, so sweet. And I look really fondly on it. It was a really great experience for sure.
Brilliant. And you played Dakota?
I did. People hated me.
Yes.
I was a terrible character. People really, really hate me. So much. I like still, I mean, that season came out like 2 years ago now, I think, and people still are DMing me being like, I literally hate you. Why did you do that? And I'm like, please, I don't write the show. I'm sorry.
But
Um,
that's gotta be a massive compliment that they can't necessarily
I think
keep
so
the
too.
keep the distance or keep kayfabe or keep kind of like the character from the person. That's gotta be like the highest compliment.
Oh, I know. I think so too. And honestly, for me, I look at it as like I either want to be people's favorite character or the character they hate the most, because at
Yeah.
least you're like eliciting some sort of conversation or reaction to it, which is fun. So I didn't mind it. I knew people hated me. I was a terrible character. I killed so many characters that people loved.
Yeah.
It's not great. But you know what? That was fun. It's part of the
Yeah.
job. I got to be like a literal psychopath. I was like a freaking psycho child running around killing everyone totally fun because acting is all about getting to play things that are like so so far from who you are.
Yeah.
So it was
And
really fun.
on that note, do you have kind of a favorite? Are you um do you prefer bad or good necessarily, or is it just anything that elicits a reaction?
Ooh, I mean, I'm super huge on just like if I get an audition for something, if it's just a character that really like sparks interest for me or I feel like connected to in some way, I get really excited about it. I love playing characters that are super far from like my own personality. Just because I think that's the most fun to like watch something back and like feel like you're unrecognizable, like it's not even remotely like who I am. I just think that's really fun. Um, but I I a lot of times end up playing characters that are like evil. I don't know why. I don't know if that's a commentary on me as a person or the vibe that I give off. I don't understand. I don't know, but I'm like always killing people or I'm dying like in the hospital or I'm causing other people to die. I'm getting killed. I don't know. Like it's always these like really insane plot lines that are happening to me. I don't like I have killed so many people in movies and TV. I don't know why they do that to me. I don't know if I should like go to therapy or something for that, but
I don't know what vibe you're giving off because every time I've talked to you, you've been
oh,
fantastic. You've been lovely. You've been great
I
to
don't think
chat
so
to.
either. I don't
And
think that that's the vibe I give off, but I think a lot of things like that, like the massive twist where it's someone that feels so unassuming and then they end up doing something bad. I feel like that's what it is. I don't think I actually give off the vibe of a murderer, but I
no,
more think it's that I give the really shocking twist of like, oh my gosh, it's that person that's gone crazy. I'll
no,
just I'm gonna say that's what it is. But
yeah,
I think
no.
it's so
Well,
fun because obviously like that's crazy characters to play. It's like for me even there was a movie that I loved working on called A Boy Called Christmas, where I got to play like a little pixie fairy, and in this like super cute Christmassy world. And even still, I'm like, oh, this is lovely. I'm playing a fairy. This is so fun. And then they're like, this fairy's in jail and she likes to blow things up. And I'm like, what the heck? I thought I was being a little fairy. Why is she in jail for like arson? What? Can't I just be normal,
Just be a
please?
nice character for
I
once.
know.
No, you have to be a murdering psychopath. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've accepted it now. I think that's just what it is.
Fantastic. No, I think that's great. And but you have shown range in your acting. And then there's one story in particular, and kind of going back to The Walking Dead
Mhm.
a little bit, where obviously you're from New Jersey and you had to play a Texan. Um, and you had to, so how did you get into the role of that accent? Did it take time to get that accent, or did you just sort of get it straight away?
Ooh, okay. There's actually a really funny story that sorry, I keep getting notifications. Okay, so there's kind of a funny story about how last minute that actually ended up being. So I had no idea what I didn't like plan on doing that accent at all before I got onto set. And I I got to set on my first day, and the actress Colby Minifie, who was playing my sister, we started like doing the rehearsal for the day, and she was doing a really heavy Southern accent, and I was like, hmm, interesting. So nobody told me she was going to be doing that accent, and we're sisters, so I feel like I also need to have that accent if she's going to have that accent. And they were like, you know what, you're probably right. And so about 5 seconds before we started filming for my first scene of the season, I just was like, oh, well, I guess I'll just do it. And so I did. And then that was the accent I had for the whole season. So there was
Wow.
zero planning whatsoever that went into that. I love doing accents in general. So I think I'm decently okay at it. So I think that worked out. But it's funny. I guess I am quite good at doing accents, which I mean, I guess I just like will be doing them randomly. But when I did A Boy Called Christmas, I had to be British
Yes.
in that movie. And I had a dialect coach for that one, that they had kind of given me because I was the only American person or like one of two Americans in the cast. Um, and I did like my first session of dialect coaching, and the guy ended up being like, "Well, I don't really have anything more to say, so I guess I'll just tell them you're fine." He's like, "Did you like have you done this in a job before? Or like why do you know how to do it?" And I was like, "I don't really know. I just do it." And
Just do
then
it.
I only had to do one session, and he's like, "Well, you're good because this sounds really correct. So I guess we'll just leave it." And I was like, "Awesome, thank you."
Fantastic. Less work. Brilliant.
But I just am always just winging it. I don't know.
No, that's brilliant. And I have seen bits and pieces of that as well. And as a fellow Brit, I believe your British accent was fantastic. So
Thank you.
kudos to
Thank
you.
you. That means the most to me coming from
Kudos.
a proper British person, so I'll take it.
As we sort of get sort of round towards the end here, I'd love to talk a little bit about your YouTube career because
Sure.
you are up to 7.5 million subscribers, which yeah, is a decent amount, um,
Good.
and obviously 4.2 million on TikTok as well. What's the sort of for anyone who hasn't seen, what's the sort of genre demo you're kind of going for with your YouTube channel?
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. It's something that has kind of become its complete own beast, separate from anything else that I do. So I definitely make videos that are geared towards kids, which has been really fun. There's a kind of long-winded backstory as to how I ended up doing it, but I was dating a guy. I'm my ex-boyfriend now, but I was dating a guy for like 5 years who did YouTube full time as his career. He still does. And when we started dating, so that he could kind of travel and come see me if I was, working away, filming, whatever, yada yada. When he would come to visit me, I would like film with him so that he could keep working and keep getting his content put out. And then over time, it just developed into this like massive animal where I was like in all his videos, and it became such a huge part of my life. Completely accidentally, because I was like, I don't know, I'm just like helping him so that he can keep working while we're traveling or whatever. Um, and it became this whole thing. And again, I was busy working on, you know, my acting career and all this other stuff, so I never really considered having my own channel. I was kind of like, well, that's like my boyfriend's thing, so I help him with that, and I've got my other stuff that I'm doing. And then the like SAG strike came around, and there was a whole lot of months that I was kind of sitting around twiddling my thumbs, doing nothing. And I was like, all right, well, I've got a lot of time on my hands, and that could be a creative outlet. And I'd been doing it for so long that I at that point had a huge fan base from YouTube. Like I get recognized out in public constantly, and 99% of the time it's not for acting, it's for YouTube. Like it's crazy.
Wow.
It's like such a huge audience, which has been really cool and so much fun. So yeah, only around like 8 months ago I started my own YouTube channel, which is crazy how fast it's grown in that short of a period of time. But yeah, I make videos for kids. I do like sketch videos. I actually work with my brother, so my brother writes all of the videos, and kind of helps with the back end stuff of the uploading and deals with our editor and all that kind of stuff. So I've got a bit of a family business as well, um, with the YouTube. But it's been really fun. I adore the fan base. They're like between ages like 5 and 12. And they're so sweet. And I love when kids come up to me in public, and I've always loved kids forever and ever. So it's just been a lot of fun, and they're so sweet. And they're also very forgiving. You can post really silly things on the internet and they think it's hilarious. So that's a plus.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's absolutely fantastic. And obviously TikTok as well, you do a variety of different stuff on
Yeah.
there. And how's that all going at the moment?
It's good, it's good, yeah, it's interesting, like, with each of the different social media platforms, I've kind of, like, done completely different things. My Instagram has kind of stayed mostly just regular day-to-day stuff, but also I use that mostly for, like, if I have to post about work, like, acting stuff. I think is kind of primarily where my Instagram followers have come from, is, like, you know, an older crowd of people that have watched my acting stuff. And then my TikTok, I just kind of I don't know, I just do random stuff on there. I have no idea. It's just random trends. You'll watch me do stupid dance trends or whatever. I don't know. I just kind of like it's become such a huge part of life of like being an actor, and it's like super relevant to be active on social media. So I'm just like, I guess just post random crap on there, and I guess somebody likes watching it. Couldn't tell you why, but they do. Um, so I also use that platform as more just kind of me personally, just doing silly stuff that I feel like doing. And then the YouTube became a completely different beast of my channel is called Zoe Tube. And it's interesting. I almost look at that YouTube channel as like a caricature of myself, almost like the like Amanda Bynes show or something. Like it's like I feel like I'm like having a kids TV show over on my YouTube channel, which is fun because I get to just like outlet all of this like silly high energy stuff kind of over there. So it's weird, all of the different social media platforms I have I use like in completely different ways. But kind of makes it fun. It's the fun thing about social media is like getting to just do whatever you want. Like you're in complete control of
Yeah.
you put out from start to finish, which is super different from the acting industry. So definitely keeps me busy in my free time between acting jobs for sure.
Fantastic. And on the subject of acting jobs, I'd like to get on to plans for the future. Now, obviously, no spoilers. I don't want to
Of
get
course.
sued by anyone. I don't want agents coming after me or film producers or no one saying, "Tom, you coerced poor Zoe into saying all of the secrets for her next film."
I talk about something and
Um,
there's an immediate sniper like ready to be like,
yes.
no, you can't say that.
Yeah,
Get it
no,
out.
we'll have none of that. But I know you've talked to me a little bit about where you'll be doing some acting work next. I don't know if you can share that at all, but
I can.
okay, that's
Nothing.
fine.
I don't have a ton of secretive stuff going on right now, so it's okay. But
I love
I finished up filming a movie a little while back called Please Don't Feed the Children, which is another horror movie. And the cool thing about that is Destry Spielberg's directorial debut. So
Wow.
pretty cool person to get to work with, and even all the insight that she has from having a pretty incredible director as a dad,
Yeah.
and just getting to kind of see those genetic skills come to life and get to work with her was really fun. So that is an independent film, but it should be getting kind of floated around festivals this festival season, so that'll come out probably in the next few months at some point. Not totally sure on the exact date. So there's that, and then there's another independent film that I'll be working on in September. Um, so I'll get to go and film. That's like kind of a road trip type movie with two sisters. So that should be fun. It's a very cute one. And then I did a movie called The Family Plan a little while back, and that did get officially greenlit for a sequel. So starting in October, I will be heading to Europe to film a sequel for The Family Plan.
Fantastic. And obviously I've seen Family Plan as well, and obviously that has a star-studded cast. I mean, I was having a look. I mean, you are obviously a very big star in your own right, and you also work with some huge names
For sure.
as well. Is there anything, any particular person that really sort of stands out that you go, I learned loads from this person?
Ooh, I would say in general, the job that it's funny because it's like there's multiple people that I feel like I learned a ton from, and all of them happen to be on the same job. But for me, that one of the biggest learning experiences and just like being kind of in awe of the creativity around me was working on Only Murders in the Building. I mean, that cast in itself is just they're known at this point for having like the most absurd star-studded cast on the planet. Gosh. But getting the opportunity to work in scenes with like Steve Martin and Martin Short and Selena Gomez and uh, all of these like insanely phenomenal actors that are like, I mean, comedy legends at that point, was really amazing. And when I had done that job, I've done a ton of drama over my career. And more recently, in the past like few years, I've worked on more comedy, which has been cool. But it was definitely like an avenue I hadn't explored as much. And getting to work with like literal comedy legends was a pretty great place to learn and kind of work in the comedy field for one of the first times, because making a joke on set or in a scene and having Steve Martin or Martin Short laugh at something you've improved is a pretty good shot in the arm of confidence to feel like, all right, okay, it's good. I can feel a little bit better about what I'm doing. Like if they think I'm funny, I could pretty much just die feeling like I may be slightly funny. And also I was the biggest fan of Selena Gomez. Like as a child, she was probably like my ultimate person that I was obsessed with. I was like a Wizards of Waverly Place obsessed child. I loved her. And she's like the sweetest person I think to exist on the planet Earth. And she's so kind and amazing. And so overall, in terms of like the people I got to work with, I think that job is a front runner for sure, just because they were all so amazing and kind and so talented. So I loved that one. That was great.
That's brilliant. That's fantastic to hear, and thank you so much for your insight as well.
Sure.
And just very lastly, I know we're running short on time, but where and people probably find it easier to find you than they'll find me, but where can people find you, keep up to date with everything that's going on with you?
For sure. I would say honestly, in general, probably my Instagram, which is just literally my handle is just my name. I would say I post the most about acting stuff and just general stuff going on in my life on there. I think that's most of my info you can usually find on there.
Fantastic. I just want to say it has been a pleasure. These 45 minutes have absolutely flown by.
I know.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for taking time out your day to come and chat to me. Thank you for being so open with your Hirschsprungs and your acting. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.